My name is Margaret Brooks. I was married to Walter for 37 years. We lived in Savannah in a modest two-story house with a creaky porch and a garden that only bloomed when it wanted to. After Walter passed, the silence in that house became something heavy. Not just absence but something deeper. Like a paused life that no longer had a reason to restart. It was Hannah who called. "Mom, you shouldn't be alone anymore. Come be with us. Let the kids know their grandmother." I sold our house. Used the money to help Hannah and Trevor buy theirs in Austin. A big new place with too many windows and sharp corners. I paid for the down payment, bought the dining table, even covered the first 3 months of preschool for little Annie. They said it was temporary. That I could have the downstairs room with the separate entrance. That I could come and go as I pleased. And in the beginning it even felt like that. We had family dinners. Picked Annie up from school. I packed lunches and folded laundry. Trevor smiled and said, "This feels like home now." But things shift quietly before they collapse. One night we were eating on the patio. Trevor had a beer in hand. The kids were running barefoot in the grass. He pointed toward the house and said, "Once that room's empty, I'll finally have space for a home office." I looked at him, unsure if I'd misheard. But he just kept smiling, sipping from the bottle like he'd said nothing at all. I told myself not to overreact. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe it was just a thought, not a plan. But that night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles. I thought about how the walls in Savannah had held memories. Here the walls were just drywall and borrowed time. Trevor never brought it up again. But the air had changed. And I had begun to notice small things. Little patterns. Like how the kids were told to say thank you to the babysitter, but not to me. How my coffee mug went missing, replaced by one that said, "Best nanny ever." How the door to my room started to stick. And no one offered to fix it. I still cooked dinner. Still packed lunches. Still smiled and folded and picked up and tucked in. But something in me had gone still. One afternoon, while folding towels, I heard Trevor on the phone in the hallway. His voice was low, but the words were clear enough. "We can't live like this forever. Once she's settled somewhere else, we can finally use the space." And then the worst part, Hannah's voice replying softly. "She knows it's not permanent. She said so herself." I didn't remember saying that. But maybe I had. Maybe I'd wanted to believe it would be a gift, not a burden. That night, I lay in bed and listened to the sounds of the house. The hum of the fridge, the thump of little feet upstairs, the distant laugh of Trevor watching something on his laptop. I thought of Walter. Of the porch in Savannah. Of jasmine blooming wild over the fence. And I wondered when exactly I had become someone people made space for only when it was convenient. I closed my eyes and waited for morning. Not with hope. With clarity. The shift came slow, like cold creeping in through old windows. No one said anything directly. That would have been too easy to fight. Instead, it was quiet exclusions. The absence of warmth where it had once pretended to live. Hannah started leaving notes instead of speaking. "Please pack Annie's lunch without peanut butter. Wipe down the counters after using the toaster. Don't forget the dog's pills." I followed each one word for word. But each note said more than its content. It said, "You're a helper, not family." Trevor grew sharper around the edges. Once, when I left the oven on to keep a casserole warm, he snapped, "Electricity isn't free, Margaret." I had never heard him say my name like that. Flattened, dismissive. At dinner they spoke around me. I'd chime in, and Hannah would blink as if surprised I was still there. One morning Annie asked, "Grandma, why do you live here?" Smiled. "To help your mommy and daddy." She frowned. "But daddy said you don't pay rent." Froze. "What else did he say?" She looked down. "Just that it's temporary." There was again that word. I brushed her hair behind her ear. "Well, sometimes we help until we're not needed anymore." Came out softer than I felt. One Thursday, I overheard Hannah on the phone. Her voice was low, but the hallway carried everything. She's just temporary. We're helping her. But she won't be here forever. Then a soft laugh. She doesn't even notice. That laugh stayed with me. I started making lists of my own, not for chores but for clues. Every time something vanished from my space. Every shift in tone. Every cold glance. My coffee mug. Gone again. My favorite blanket. Washed in bleach until the threads frayed. My TV privileges. Annie needs quiet in the evenings, Mom. No one said I was unwelcome. But I was being managed, narrowed, folded smaller every day. Then came the worst. One night, I was putting Annie to bed when she asked if I would be around for her birthday. Of course, I said. It's only 2 months away. She looked puzzled. But Mommy said you'd be living somewhere else by then. I tucked the blanket tighter around her and kissed her forehead. Good night, sweetheart. Downstairs, I didn't say a word. I just stared at the dishwasher as it hummed. That night, I lay in bed and imagined packing. Not because I was ready to go, but because I knew now that someone else had already decided I would. The next day, I opened the closet and quietly began setting things aside. Not in boxes. In resolved, it happened on a Wednesday. I had just come back from the corner pharmacy. Annie's favorite cough drops and a small bottle of lavender oil for my wrists. The air had shifted with spring, soft and bright. I remember thinking the sky looked painted. I don't remember falling. I remember waking in the ambulance. The oxygen mask, the blur of ceiling lights, the voice of a young EMT asking me to squeeze his fingers. Couldn't. Not with my right hand. I remember the ICU lights next. A nurse named Carla. I liked her voice, low and calm. She told me I'd had a stroke. That my heart had stopped for 11 seconds. 11 seconds. She offered to call my family. He nodded. Then she returned with a yellow sticky note. Your daughter left this at the front desk, she said. They're out of the country. About 12 days. The note read, Mom, we hope you're feeling better when we're back. Let the nurses know if you need anything. HNT. No call. No message. No presents. Just a note like the ones on the fridge at home. I stared at it until the glue wore off and the edges curled. Carla adjusted my pillows. We'll take good care of you. He nodded. But inside something broke. Not a dramatic break. No tears. Just a quiet shift like a final hinge coming loose. They had gone on vacation. I had died for 11 seconds. And they had gone on vacation. During recovery I learned to move again. Slowly. Spoon. Then a brush. Then laces. I thought often of Savannah. Of the porch. Of Walter's old radio humming in the morning. I didn't tell anyone I was going back to their house. Not the nurse. Not the social worker. Not even Carla. Called a rideshare. Gave the address. Watched the city roll past. When I arrived, the front door was locked. No spare key in the usual place. I knocked. Nothing. I walked around back. My garden tools were gone. My name had been scraped off the mailbox. In the driveway, a flyer caught against a bush. Modern 4BR family home with great resale value. Quiet street, excellent school district. Move-in ready. There was a photo of the house. My room's window open. Inside through the glass I saw boxes. My boxes. My things. I rang the doorbell. No answer. On the kitchen counter I saw a blue folder. Through the glass I could read the top page. Durable power of attorney. Margaret Brooks. Signed March 18, 2020. I remembered that date. The surgery. Pain meds. The papers they had said were routine. And then I saw it. An iPad screen still glowing. Text messages. Asterisk Trevor. If she's still out, we begin intake. Nursing home is the cleanest option. Hannah. I know. Once the house sells, we can breathe again. Asterisk. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't panic. It was a plan. Removal. And I wasn't going to let them finish it. I sat outside a coffee shop with a cinnamon roll I didn't eat. My hand still trembled slightly when I lifted the cup. The tremor from the stroke hadn't fully gone. It reminded me I was still here. Still moving. I didn't have many people left. But I had one, James Harris. He used to be a quiet boy in my English class, all elbows and nerves. Now he was an attorney with a calm voice and eyes that stayed steady. When I called, I expected a polite hesitation. Instead, he said, "Come in. Today if you can." His office smelled like cedar and old paper. I gave him the blue folder, the real estate flyer, a copy of the message I'd written down by hand from memory. He read everything, then asked, "Did you ever knowingly sign power of attorney documents?" "Not sober," I said. "They brought me forms after surgery. I couldn't hold a pen properly." He nodded. "That's enough." Over the next 2 weeks we built a case. James had a quiet way of speaking that made people listen. He filed for immediate revocation of the power of attorney. He froze all actions tied to the property, sent cease and desist letters to the agent, the escrow officer, and the notary who'd signed off. Then we went to the bank. The woman at the counter was polite until she pulled up the accounts. Then she grew still. "Ms. Brooks, your signature doesn't match the one on these documents." No, it didn't. Because I hadn't signed them. We opened new accounts, froze the old ones, changed security questions, locked everything. That night, I sat in a hotel room with a grocery store dinner and slept with my handbag clutched to my chest. I dreamed of my husband, sitting beside me on our Savannah porch, handing me a cold glass of lemonade. I woke before I could take a sip. The following week, James handed me a new deed. "The house is still yours." Full title. "They can't touch it now." I went back alone. I walked through every room. They hadn't taken everything, just what was easy. I sat on the edge of the bed and called the locksmith. When Trevor showed up to collect his tools from the garage, I spoke through the doorbell camera. "You have 1 hour. After that, anything left becomes donation material." He didn't argue, just nodded at the camera. When he left, he didn't look back. I locked the door behind him. And then I stood in the center of the house, arms by my sides. And for the first time since Walter died, I felt entirely alone. But it wasn't empty. It was mine again. The calls began 2 days after Trevor left. The first was from Hannah. I let it go to voicemail. "Mom, I heard what you did. Freezing the accounts. Taking the house back. Can we please just talk? We never meant to hurt you. Trevor panicked, that's all. Please, let's fix this." The second was more clipped. "Margaret, this is unfair. We're your family. We supported you. You lived here for free. You've made this harder than it needs to be." The third one came from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey, just checking in. Hannah said you might be going through something. We're all worried. Maybe you should come stay with us for a while." It went on like that. Guilt in different costumes. Panic wrapped in concern. I didn't reply. I changed my number. Left a forwarding address at the post office for only one sender. James Harris. For a week, I stayed in the house. Cleaned it top to bottom. Not to restore it, just to clear the residue. I boxed everything that wasn't mine. Labeled it. Paid a moving service to deliver it to Hannah's new address. They signed for it. I received no thank you. One evening, while taking out trash, I ran into the neighbor across the street, Mrs. Geller. White bob, gardening gloves, a trowel in one hand. "You're back," she said, then paused. "I'm glad." He nodded. "Feels different." She lowered her voice. "I never liked how they treated you. I wanted to say something more than once. But it wasn't my place. It is now." She gave a small smile. "If you ever want company, I'm out here most mornings. The coffee's not good, but the gossip is." We left it at that. 2 days later, James called. "It's done," he said. "Power of attorney revoked, bank secure. All assets under your sole name. No civil suits filed. I think they know better. Thank you. Also," he added, "an offer came in for the house. Full asking price. No contingencies." I looked around. The walls still echoed slightly. "Accept it. And the new address." I'll send it soon. That night I packed a single suitcase. Took only what I wanted. Quilt. A photo of Walter on the porch. My teaching license from 1987. One book I never finished. The rest I left. With a note on the kitchen counter. This house was never about the walls. It was about what was missing inside them. The next morning I boarded a bus headed east. No one knew where. And for the first time in years I didn't care who noticed. On the road I watched fields blur past. Then hills. Then trees. By nightfall, I arrived in a town where no one knew my name. A place with a crooked diner, a quiet post office, and a small rental sign in a bookstore window. I took the room above it. Paid cash. When the landlady asked for my name I paused. Then said, "Maggie Watson." She didn't blink. Just handed me a key. Room 2. Overlooking the street. A sliver of ocean visible if you leaned far enough. I unpacked my quilt. Set the photo on the windowsill. Brewed tea from a bag I'd carried in my coat. And I sat. Not waiting. Just being. The mornings in my new town were blue and quiet. I kept to myself at first. The room was sparse but clean. I liked the creak of the old floorboards, the sound of the bookstore bell below when someone walked in. The landlady, Marcy, left a thermos of coffee on my doorstep each morning, no questions asked. The first real conversation I had was with a boy named Jude. He was 10, red-haired, a little thin. He came up the stairs with a worried look and held out a crumpled worksheet. "Mrs. Marcy said you used to be a teacher. I have a test Monday. I don't get fractions." I didn't tell him I'd taught high school English, not math. I just pulled up a chair and said, "Let's look at it together." He came back the next day. And the next. Eventually 2 more kids joined. By the end of the month, I was unofficially tutoring 4 children out of room 2 for the price of peanut butter cookies. I found myself smiling again. The stroke had left my right hand slower, but not useless. I began journaling, 3 lines every morning, no more. I wrote down what I heard. The sea wind, the rustle of newspaper outside, the girl below asking if there were any news stories about witches. Then one morning I got a letter. Forwarded through James. The envelope was thick. Handwritten. Postmarked Austin. Inside were 2 things. A photo and a card. The photo was of Annie, holding a sign that said "First Grade" in blue crayon. The card read, "Mom. I know what we did was wrong. Can't undo it. I won't try to pretend it didn't happen. But I also won't stop trying to earn back something. Anything real. Annie asks about you. She wants to send letters. I won't interfere. Wherever you are, I hope you're safe. And I hope you know. Miss you. I miss you more than I thought I would. Love. Hannah. Asterisk. I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed it in a box in the closet. Not out of anger. But because I didn't want to answer out of habit. I wanted to respond only if the answer came from a place of stillness. Later that week, Marcy invited me to a town council potluck. I baked lemon squares. People were kind. No one asked where I came from. They asked what I liked to read. I started volunteering 2 mornings a week at the post office sorting mail. Quiet work. Repetitive. Soothing. I was not a grandmother. Not a mother. Not a dependent. I was a woman with a name she chose, in a place she arrived in alone. One day, Jude asked if he could bring his grandmother to meet me. "She doesn't leave the house much," he said. "But she used to be a teacher too. She misses it." He nodded. "Tell her she's welcome." The next afternoon, a woman named Eleanor came up the stairs with a cane and a slow smile. She looked at me and said, "You have kind eyes. That's rare." We talked for 2 hours. When she left, she touched my wrist and said, "Don't disappear again. Some of us still notice." That night, I sat by the window with tea and a notebook. I wrote, "You don't vanish when you lose everything. You vanish when you let others define what you're worth." Then I underlined it. Twice it was spring again when the second letter arrived. This time the envelope was thinner. No photo. Just a postcard of the Austin skyline and a child's handwriting on the back. Asterisk, dear Grandma Maggie. Mom said it's okay to write. I'm in 2nd grade now. I still like butterflies. Do you still like them too? I miss when you used to read to me. I hope your house is nice. I drew you a picture. It's me and you and the ocean. You have big sunglasses. I hope you're not mad anymore. Love, Annie. Asterisk. I sat with that card a long time. Let the sun move across the floor while I reread each word. Then I went downstairs, bought a plain envelope and a note card with roses on it. I wrote, asterisk, dear Annie. Thank you for the drawing. I love it. I do still like butterflies. I like lemon cake too and watching the sea and your letters. I'm not mad. I just needed quiet for a while. Maybe someday we can read again. Love, Grandma Maggie. Asterisk. I mailed it the next morning. Then I walked to the garden behind the library and sat beside Eleanor. It's a good day to answer softly, she said, as if reading my thoughts. By summer, more children joined the sessions upstairs. Jude's mother brought muffins every Thursday. The bookstore owner offered to add a sign. Afternoon tutoring with Maggie. Donations optional. Said yes. One day Marcy knocked on my door. Postmaster's retiring, she said. They need someone to take over part-time. Flexible hours. You'd be perfect. I looked around the room. The plants on the windowsill, the stack of paperbacks, the cushion that still smelled faintly of lemon oil. I'll do it. That evening I found a small box in the closet. Inside were old letters Walter had written me. I read one out loud to no one. Don't wait for the world to love you the way you love it. Just keep loving anyway. Smiled. The next day I pinned it above my desk at the post office. By fall I was fully settled. No longer a stranger. Just Maggie. Not Margaret. Not mother of anyone. Just a woman who came through something and found the other side. One morning a new couple moved into town. I saw the woman struggle with boxes and offered a hand. Thank you, she said. You're very kind. What's your name? Maggie Watson. I work at the post office. She smiled. Nice to meet you, Maggie. And that was all. Later that week, I stood on the beach with Eleanor. Tide was low. The wind smelled of pine and salt. Do you miss them? She asked. I thought of Hannah. Fanny. Of the 11 seconds between then and now. Sometimes, I said. But not how they were. Just how I hoped they'd be. That's fair. We stood without speaking, letting the waves speak instead. That night, I wrote one last line in my journal. I wasn't left behind. I just chose a different road. And it was more than enough.